Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
Going to be meeting a TARDIS pairing that we've not read before.
Ooh.
We're going to be also an author that we've not read before.
Okay.
So, we are going to be reading Asylum by Peter Darvill-Evans, featuring the Fourth Doctor and Nyssa.
Which was a listener suggestion.
It was a listener suggestion, indeed. So, it had been one I'd been considering. So, yeah.
Excellent.
That's what we're going to be doing for November.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Happy Halloween, Chris.
Yeah.
We're recording this a little bit early, and we're mere hours away from the Doctor Who Series 13 premiere.
Yeah. So we're in this exciting space where we're operating in hope.
And you, listener, know how it all turns out.
Yes.
After we're done recording here, I'm off to a premiere party
Ooh.
at friend of the show and Reality Bomb contributor and Frankenstein Minute co-host Bill Evenson's.
Marvelous.
So that should be fun, and I'm sure we'll provide our thoughts about it in the December episode.
Yeah. I was invited round to dinner at somebody's house, and I sort of said, well, yeah, could I have Doctor Who on? And they said, must we? And I went, well, it's the first episode, and it might be good. I don't know. I can't vouch for it. So they said, maybe you come back next week. So,
But it's also on next week, too.
Yes. However, by that point, we would know, because it was one long story, as to a bit more of an indication as to...
Yes, we'll be halfway into the flux, whatever that is.
Yes. Now, I think we're at show and tell time, aren't we? Unless there's any book news worth sharing?
No, I think pretty quiet on that front.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's jump right into show and tell.
Yeah, it's almost as if there's a completely new kind of like creative team taking over, isn't it?
The decks have been wiped cleaner.
Yes, it's all in flux. Right, okay, so show and tell, Matt, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so this month I have a new podcast to recommend. And it was started by a listener of ours, Leland, who I had the pleasure of meeting at Gallifrey a few years back when travel was in vogue. We could do such things. And his podcast is called Indoctrination. And it features conversations between him and his daughters, Josie and Elizabeth, as they work their way through the classic series. And they read the target novelization for each story in addition to watching the TV episode. So it's kind of like they do both in one go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and each episode's only like 10 or 15 minutes.
Cool.
And it's really interesting, their reaction to like black and white material.
Yes. Which order did they do? Did they read the novelization first and then the TV?
Yeah. They just finished The Reign of Terror a few weeks ago, so
okay.
It's well worth a listen. So
Yeah, and also because we've got so much animation these days as well that, because I'm just looking over at my shelves that have the faceless ones on it, which I still find bizarre. And amongst my other DVDs, as if nothing remarkable here, this is perfectly fine.
How about you, Chris?
So I have Gunpowder Milkshake, which may sound like a drink. It is a movie, in fact, featuring one Karen Gillan. And it's been described in some quarters as a female John Wick. I think it owes a bit more to kind of like Kill Bill and kind of stuff like that. There's a definitely Tarantino-esque kind of like comic violence type thing. And it also has, Lena Headey from Game of Thrones, and Michelle Yeoh and Angela Bassett and Paul Giamatti.
I know Lena Headey from Sarah Connor Chronicles. I'm still upset that show was cancelled.
Yes, okay. It's fun, I would say. I mean, it's It's possibly not quite as madcap and as entertaining as I necessarily wanted it to be. I mean, it's no kind of like Atomic Bombshell, but it's
kind of in that vein.
It's in that vein, yeah, it's in that vein. It's not one for all the family. Yeah, I must say I enjoyed it, and Karen Gillan's great. It just makes me just think about how wonderful the Doctor Who casting directors, whatever that role is, the people pick the actors, for the 11th Doctor era.
I think it's been the same person throughout the entirety of New Who, hasn't it? Andy Pryor.
Yeah, I think so.
He's done the casting for every season. I think he's been the one him and Nick Briggs, I think.
Yeah.
The two that have been there throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, but they absolutely came out amazingly successful, Karen Gillan. Gunpowder Milkshake. It's available, I think, on Netflix in America, and it's on Sky in the UK and Canal Plus in France.
I've heard of it, but I hadn't seen a trailer or anything, so I didn't really know the style.
It was released at cinemas over here, but at the same time as it was released on Sky. Yeah, it was also quite nice seeing buses advertising new movies that you can actually see, rather than for like 2 to 3 months of last year advertising movies that were not able to be seen anywhere. but not released.
Every once in a while I would get a trailer, and then it'd be like, oh, this is coming out in May of 2020, and it's like, that didn't happen.
No. That didn't happen.
And they're still playing the same trailer. Oh.
Yes. But yeah.
So this month we are reading Asylum.
Yes.
By Peter Darvill-Evans.
Yes. So Peter Darvill-Evans was the editor of the New Adventures range for quite some time. He also wrote for the range. He wrote the book Deceit, because apparently he decided to write a book so that he knew what the process was like. Which, maybe Eric Say would also use that same excuse. He also wrote Independence Day for the Past Doctor Adventures range. He wrote what was going to be the very first chapter of the New Adventures that was later published in Doctor Who magazine as a short story called How Did This Creep Get In Here, Professor? Which shows a post-credit scene of survival of the Master having got into the TARDIS and sabotaging it.
I haven't read that one. So it was published in DWM?
Yes, but I must say, I don't remember. I came across this in doing my research. I've never heard of that.
Interesting.
He also co-wrote with Ian Marsh Time Lord, which was a Doctor Who role-playing book, which I did read. I never used it for playing, but it's got 2 interesting scenarios in it.
There's like sample adventures,
Yeah.
And one of them's open-ended, right? Where it's for a campaign you're supposed to finish on your own.
Yes, and the other one, it's entirely there, and features, I think there's a sequel to the Daemons in a shopping centre. And
that's cool.
And I was so starved of New Who at that point that I remember reading it and thinking, oh, this sounds great.
Is that the book where the illustrations, they were all kind of a little on the squat side? I'm trying to remember.
I think so, yeah.
Kind of an interesting art style.
But they also give kind of like stats for all of the companions and everything. Yeah, but I say, because I'm not much of a role player, I never actually used it. So I can't speak for how good it is, but I gather it is available as kind of like freeware on the internet.
Yeah, I still have a copy somewhere around here.
Yeah.
In a box somewhere.
Fair enough.
So Peter Darvill-Evans also was one of the folks who negotiated the rights for the novels for the New Adventures.
Yes.
In the first place. So he was there from the start, and probably wouldn't have this podcast without
him. Yeah, because it was him and Nigel Robinson realised that even if the show was carrying on, that they would be starting to run out of new material. Because there was only so many things like the Pescatons and Slipback that they could novelise.
Adapt,
Yeah, and Peter Darvill-Evans apparently nowadays works as a kind of like, I think, like as a tax inspector for Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. So, certainly that was the state of play when because I was in a queue for Andy Lane to sign some stuff a few years ago, and somebody started talking to him about Peter Darvill-Evans and the fact that they still worked with him at HMRC. So the interesting careers of Peter Darvill-Evans, and because I think he also started out in the fighting fantasy role-playing books. And so I remember that he always got quite excited about people that presented their narratives in a choose-your-own-adventure style, because he could follow that if it was something that was set across time streams. He always liked it in that kind of way. Yeah, as you say, without him, this podcast would not be. And probably the series wouldn't be, the TV series.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think the New Adventures kept the flame going. Them and DWM, yeah.
And then later Big Finish, of course, but yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And so this book, Asylum, it features the Fourth Doctor and Nyssa, which is an interesting combination, and we'll get to that in a second. And
Yes.
it was published in May of 2001, and it features 2 prologues, 7 untitled chapters, an epilogue, acknowledgments, a bibliography, an essay about the history of errors and falsifications, and an about the author, which was written in December of 2000. And there's also an advertisement at the back of the book encouraging the reader to sign up for the BBC Books official Doctor Who e-groups newsletter in the brief period when e-groups was a thing, prior to Yahoo buying them out. And most of the story takes place in and around Oxford. Mm-hmm. And the prologue takes place in 1346, but the majority of the story takes place in 1278. Yep. Some 68 years prior.
Yep.
And there's some scenes set in 3488 as well.
Yep.
And from the Doctor's perspective, this probably takes place after the Deadly Assassin, I would think. But
yes.
It's hard to say exactly.
Yeah. I suppose it could also take place after the Invasion of Time, but he's either on his own or his companion is having a big sleep and he decides not to mention him.
A Nyssa nap, as it were.
Yes, indeed, a Nyssa nap.
So shall we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. Right. We begin in London in 1346. So we have an elderly friar who's been drawn to the city by the memory of voices in his head, and he's seeking strangers who've recently arrived in London. And these strangers have fought a war and lost, and have been exiled from their home. But their bodies died whilst travelling through the null dimensions, and so they need to find new hosts amongst the people of this world. But as they go kind of scanning the surrounding time stream, they find that the world will soon be struck by plague. Sorry, I have picked a plague book.
Again.
Yes, again. Yeah, that's true. And so this plague, because it's the Black Death, 1/3 of the population is going to die. So these aliens, they don't have the energy to leap to another world, and they also don't have the energy to keep leaping from host to host whilst the plague kills them off. And they can't retreat to the null dimension, as their new hosts from this world can't survive there. So basically they're somewhat doomed. But they have one hope. The scan of the time stream indicates the presence of a man named Roger Bacon in the direction known to these people as the past. And Roger Bacon conducted some initial research into distilling an elixir of life. So what they need to do is send one of their own back to encourage his researchers so that the people of 1346 will have a defence against the plague.
That's quite the setup.
It is quite the setup, isn't it? It's a very interesting setup.
So it's like, imagine if the wormhole aliens from like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, or, fill in your non-corporeal aliens of choice, are stranded on Earth, and they sort of can possess individuals, but it's almost like a dormancy, in their mind, where they're making suggestions of the host body, so you're not aware that you've been taken over.
Yeah, it's quite a setup, and also and Roger Bacon, someone who we will unsurprisingly spend a bit more time with later, was a real person.
I was surprised to learn that too.
Okay.
His Wikipedia. He
wasn't
wasn't familiar to me, but
right.
I guess he's known as like an early originator of the scientific method.
Yes,
is what he's kind of known for in history.
Yes.
So then we flash forward 2,000 years to Nyssa of Traken, and she's teaching at a university. And she's trying to ignore, there's all sorts of faculty politics which are complicating her life, and there's the threat of war looming over the system. So after Nyssa helped cure the plague in Terminus, she's been roaming the galaxy, and this is where we get our Adventures of Nyssa spinoff, I think.
Yes.
In the RTD2 era. And she's seeking causes to fight for. And then she later realized that she's been fleeing kind of her own feelings and emotions, and processing the destruction of her world and everything she saw in her travels with the Doctor. And on the planet Exynos, she's unable to prevent a Holocaust, and it becomes all too much for her to bear. And so she's been retreating into this teaching position and distracting herself on working on a thesis about the development of the scientific method in Earth's history. And then so she's been focusing on this philosopher, Roger Bacon. And one day she finds that all of her research has been changing. So she's been interacting with Home, which is I guess her version of a personal assistant.
Yeah.
I won't say their names, so I won't trigger them if any listeners have them in their rooms. But you know the type of device we're talking about.
Yes.
So she's interacting with her Home assistant, and it's kind of an interesting scene where she's realizing that Home's memory is being changed or affected. And at this point, it's the dramatic reading, right?
Yeah, yes, where the dramatic reading comes in. And this month's reading is being brought to us by Lucas from the Episodes of Death podcast, and also as well the Radioactive Lounge. Yeah, so let's have a listen.
Nyssa stepped forward and held out her hand. The Doctor, after looking at it suspiciously for a moment, took it and shook it. "I've met you," Nyssa said, "but you haven't met me. Not yet, anyway. That must be it. One of the unusual effects of travelling in time. I'm Nyssa. We met, or are going to meet in your case, on my home planet." The Doctor brandished a warning finger. "It's best I don't know," he said. He grinned. He looked younger than Nyssa remembered him. "It'll come as a nice surprise. I'm very pleased to meet you, Nyssa." Nyssa smiled at him, but she couldn't help remembering the events on Traken. The Doctor was in for anything but a nice surprise. Perhaps she should warn him. She dismissed the idea. She understood enough about the paradoxes of time travel to know that simply by meeting the Doctor before he had met her, she had already caused damage to the currents of events. Time had a way of smoothing out slight eddies, but she suspected that telling a Time Lord how and when he would next regenerate was the kind of disturbance Time would find difficult to cope with. "Did you travel with me by any chance?" the Doctor said. "In my, ship?" Nyssa smiled. "The good old TARDIS. Oh yes, Doctor. For about 2 years, I suppose." "Excellent!" the Doctor exclaimed. "I'm sure I'll be glad to have you aboard, when the time comes. You'll know," he went on with a lopsided grin, "that she has a mind of her own sometimes. On this occasion she's landed me a few thousand years, not to mention several thousand light years, from where I thought I was going, but no doubt she was responding to a summons from you." "No, Doctor. I don't think I'd know how to contact you anyway." "How very odd." The Doctor scratched his head. He gazed at the communications terminals and the shelves stacked with books. "The TARDIS has detected an anomaly in the time stream. It related to Earth, so I thought I'd better take a look. I set the controls to take me to the apparent source, and the TARDIS brought me here. I wonder, are you conducting research by any chance?" "Yes," Nyssa said excitedly. The sudden appearance of the Doctor and the intellectual challenge of thinking about the conundrums of time had banished her weariness. "I work at the university here," she said. "I teach historical technography, and I'm doing research for my thesis." She felt her face blushing. She told herself it was silly to be ashamed. This Doctor, who hadn't yet met her younger self, had no idea she had turned her back on advanced practical work in scientific disciplines compared with which technography was a soft option. "And the subject of your thesis is?" "Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the engineer from Earth's early industrial era," Nyssa said. "Of course, that must be it. Home and I have been collecting everything we can find about him. The concentration of information must have led the TARDIS..." She stopped. The Doctor, looking comically disappointed, was shaking his head. "It's not Brunel," he said. "Although he's a suitable subject for your research, of course. He smokes the vilest cigars, by the way. But he's more than 500 years later than the source of the anomaly. I don't understand it." He peered at Nyssa, and then once again at the communications terminals. 500 years, Nyssa repeated. "That's deep in the pre-industrial era. There's nothing of interest to a technographer there." Even as she said the words, she remembered something important. But as she searched her mind for the elusive memory, it dissipated like mist in the sun. "Well," the Doctor said, clapping his hands together, "it's been a pleasure to meet you, Nyssa, but it's clear I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I'd better be on my way. We shouldn't really have met at all, what with our timelines being asynchronous." He was clearly in a hurry to leave, but he hesitated in the doorway. "I was just wondering," he said, and then paused and looked around the study room again, as if something about it puzzled him. You seem to live very quietly here, he said. And before I left the TARDIS, I did a bit of checking. This planet, at this time, is remarkably free from strife of any kind, at least for the time being. What I mean is, I hope that when you were travelling with me, you didn't experience... I know things can get rather too exciting sometimes, when we're wandering from crisis to crisis in time and space. He ran out of words. Nyssa had felt a cloud of dismay envelop her when she heard the apparently innocuous words, at least for the time being, slip from the Doctor's mouth. He was obsessive about correcting time stream anomalies, but hopelessly indiscreet about committing them himself. She managed to summon a smile. It's all right, Doctor. I had fun on the TARDIS. Most of the time. Some of the places we visited were less than enjoyable, but that's not why I'm here. You're right, I suppose. I'm in retreat. At the moment, all I want from life is peace and quiet. Peace and quiet, the Doctor repeated, as if the words themselves were as alien to him as the concepts they represented. My view, he said, leaning forward and opening his eyes wide, is that you can run. In fact, it's often by far the best option, but you can't hide. I'll see myself out. He grinned, waved, turned, and walked from the study room. Nyssa felt a pang of disappointment. He'd gone. She would probably never see him again, and for a while the TARDIS had been her home, and she had been happy in those days. Dr. Mirabilis, she whispered. The Doctor's shaggy-haired head appeared sideways in the doorway. What did you say?
Thank you so much, Lucas, for reading that.
Yes, thank you, Lucas.
And we'll be sure to link to your podcasts in the show notes.
Yes, and it's also got an upcoming project in which you may hear my voice, of which more later, I suspect.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yes.
So, as we've just heard, the TARDIS has materialized in Nyssa's house, and it's brought with it the earlier version of the Doctor she knew, the one who is yet to meet her, so the Fourth Doctor, and he's been tracking a historical time anomaly, and for some reason the TARDIS had brought him here. And his presence is enough to remind Nyssa of a vague feeling that something was wrong with her research, because even her memory's been altered, but maybe it's, I don't know, the Artron energy rubbing off on her in the room. But she's able to realize that, it has something to do with Roger Bacon, and the Doctor decides to take the TARDIS back to 13th century Oxford to investigate further. And weary of faculty politics and the threat of war, and longing for a simpler time and place like her home on Traken, Nyssa slips aboard the TARDIS when the Doctor isn't looking, and accompanies him back to Oxford in the year 1278.
Yeah, I mean, Nyssa surely's had enough experience of kind of like time travel to know that things are not necessarily quite cozy.
I was going to say she's going to be trading in her faculty politics for inner monk and friar politics and the threat of war in a moment.
Yes, at a university, yes. So it's going to be at home from home.
More of the same, yeah.
Yes. So the knight Richard of Hockley arrives in Oxford to take command of the castle garrison and to keep the peace between the various different factions in the town. And he's going to be staying at the castle of the Lady Matilda, who is his lord's aunt. He's under the orders of the university chancellor, Philip of Seaby. All of these people are, as I understand it, fictitious. But I did Google them. Richard's first task seems simple enough. He is to find two buskers who are using prisms to demonstrate the principles of reflection and refraction, and he's going to expel them from the town. And he's expecting to find a couple of kind of scruffy ne'er-do-wells. However, instead, he discovers a man who calls himself the Doctor, who's kind of like clad in bright, well-tailored clothes. And his assistant Nyssa, who he kind of thinks of as like a courtly noblewoman. And he basically falls in love with her instantly. And whilst he's kind of like trying to figure out what to do, so a messenger arrives from the university and says that Brother Godwin, who'd gone missing the night before, has been found dead. So,
and I was thinking about every time Richard was mentioned, the person that kept coming to my mind, unfortunately, was Richard from Silver Nemesis, Lady Painfort's soldier.
Yes. Well, I was also thinking of, is it Richard Mace from The Visitation?
Oh,
Who's also a kind of like an itinerant. I don't think he's not a knight, he's an actor, but yeah. But yeah, so Richard he's been in the wars and the kind of fighting the Welsh, and he's very much a soldier, is Richard.
and here's where we get the first of several descriptions of Nyssa and her beauty being a feast for the eyes and the senses. And apparently every character has to go through this paragraph when they encounter her. So take that how you will.
Yes. Yeah, and some of those are quite choice, aren't they?
Yes.
So yeah, there's one of these. She's described as being, she was buxom but not yet plump, and her face and limbs were constantly animated as she talked. Okay, all right. And that's not the worst of it, is it?
I find kind of also related to Nyssa. I very much was kind of disappointed that Peter Darvill-Evans skipped over the scene of Nyssa being discovered stowing away. This book is the shortest of all of the past Doctor adventures,
yes,
due to the lengthy essays included.
Yes,
but there are some missing scenes both here and towards the end where I'm just like, why don't we get that scene of Nyssa being discovered? There's also a mistake in the text that I want to point out.
Oh yes,
Nyssa says that the Doctor fell to his death on Logopolis, and he in fact fell to death on Earth, because you get the ambulance and the paramedics, right after the regeneration.
So I was thinking about that. I mean, obviously it was somewhat of a traumatic time in her life, because like her father's animated corpse was wandering around threatening to destroy the universe. So and she'd just been jumped from planet to planet. So I could understand her just getting a bit jumbled in her memories. Possibly.
And in the scene where the Doctor and Nyssa meet for the first time, for the first time, and from the Doctor's perspective, it's kind of weird that Nyssa doesn't mention or even hint at thinking about Adric at all, because I feel like at the very least we should have gotten like an internal monologue there, where Nyssa might be weighing the pros and cons of trying to prevent Adric's death, or giving this Doctor the foreknowledge, or whether it's a fixed point in time, but we don't get anything like that. It just kind of jumps right into the historical intrigue. Yeah.
But what we do get, in fact, I think the introductory scene of Nyssa for this book is her in the bath, which I guess carries on a somewhat ignoble tradition from Terminus, in which she's just wandering around not wearing very much of the TARDIS. But it's like, oh, okay, right. This is an interesting take.
Yeah. But, early on, we do get also in the novel, we do get quite a bit of casual anti-Semitism.
Yes.
That gets introduced and goes unchallenged for quite a bit of it, and it's painting a picture, I think, of what this Oxford is like, and how there's these different districts and stuff. But it is quite prominent and at the forefront too. So
yes, I think it's a good thing to be people to be aware of.
All right. So the Doctor's been conducting his street performances in the hope of attracting I keep thinking
not
Francis
Bacon.
The other one, Roger Bacon, attracting Roger Bacon's attention, and he follows Richard to the university. And there the friars try to bar them from entering, claiming this is an internal matter. And then the Doctor claims to have been invited personally by Roger Bacon, so before the days of psychic paper, of course.
Yeah.
And to his surprise, Bacon's constant companion, who is this brother Thomas, confirms that this is indeed the case. And the Franciscan minister, whose name is Hubert, he has little choice but to let the Doctor enter, but he will not permit a woman inside the friary. So Richard the Knight offers to arrange for Nyssa to stay with the Lady Matilda, because obviously Nyssa's of royal heritage just in how she conducts and holds herself. And the TARDIS translation circuits are really interesting here, because they're translating Nyssa's speech as French, the Doctor's speech as like High Latin, and then occasionally lapsing into English, depending on who they're talking to.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of interesting to see that layer of like class distinction kind of on top of all this.
Yeah.
And then so Nyssa's staying with little Lady Matilda in the castle, and she said she's assuring the worried doctor that she can take care of herself. This isn't her first go around on the TARDIS. And then the doctor in turn promises to keep Richard informed about his investigations into Godwin's death. And Richard seems very tongue-tied around Nyssa, but she's too tired to think about it, and simply accompanies him to the castle, unaware that he's desperately trying to think how to woo her and win her over.
Yeah. So Hubert, it might be Hubert. Maybe
Hubert, maybe.
Hubert, yeah. Because we're 2 centuries after the Norman conquests. So and so therefore a lot of the kind of like the upper classes will be French, and there's a lot of French influences.
Is this the Plantagenet era, or
no? Actually, I think the Plantagenet period is starting, but I also think in the early days of Plantagenet era they weren't actually known as Plantagenets. But yes, so we have the Norman conquest, and then so right now I think that we are in a time of Edward II, who, unless I'm much mistaken, rocks up in Braveheart.
I'm still waiting for the Doctor Who novel or audio that talks about the Plantagenets, but separates it out as planet agents, and that they're like an alien force. It's right there in the name.
Yes. It also explains quite how one of them ended up on Frontios. Yes. Anyway, I shan't explain that reference. So Hubert assigns a proctor to investigate Godwin's death, and this proctor is called Alfric, which I must say I kept on wanting to read it as Atric. And again, doesn't get remarked upon, as you say. Alfric needs to try to prove that Godwin's death was an accident, or, if at all possible, find some evidence to implicate Bacon. But the Doctor takes over the investigation, and he points out some odd discrepancies at the alleged scene of the death. It seems that Godwin slipped whilst drinking alone in the wine cellar and hit his head against the barrel tap. But there's these marks on the ground, which indicates that something heavy was being dragged into the cellar. And also, Godwin maybe locked and bolted the door? But on the other hand, if he was killed elsewhere and the body was moved, how did the killer bolt the door from the inside? So the Doctor kind of gets Alfric to examine Godwin's body for scuff marks, and to determine whether more than one blow was struck to his head. And this is indeed the case. So Godwin was therefore murdered. Hubert, realising that the Doctor is no fool, is kind of like playing with him, and sort of says that there's rival brotherhoods such as the Dominicans who would love to expose heresy amongst the Franciscans, and the troublesome Roger Bacon is a great liability to their order, as is the Doctor, who's still very much an unknown quantity. And the Doctor assures Hubert that he's not here to cause trouble, but instead he's here to steer Bacon away from such pursuits as astrology and alchemy. And Hubert, satisfied with this, decides to permit the Doctor to speak with Roger Bacon tomorrow. And Thomas is also satisfied when informed. So perhaps this Doctor will give Bacon the help that he needs to complete his work. Because Bacon's not been doing well on his own, despite all of Thomas's encouragement. So we've got Thomas sneaking around as well.
And Thomas comes to mind. It seems very much almost like elder abuse, where he's like trying to get him to do all this stuff and kind of direct him. And this section also pointed out that there's a difference between monks and friars, which I wasn't aware of, and how friars come from all walks of life and join the order later in life and have already had may have been married at one point or other things. So kind of interesting how this very much feels like a celebrity historical in some parts.
Yes.
Where and at points you forget this is a pseudo-historical because you have this alien influence that was hinted at in the prologue, but it's dropped for most of the novel. So you'd be hard pressed to think this very much feels like a pure historical.
Yeah. I feel like it kind of owes a little bit to Black Orchid in some ways, which is also a historical murder mystery featuring Nyssa.
And Alfred very much acts in almost like the Watson role to the Doctor.
Yes.
Through much of this, in the investigations where the Doctor's kind of teaching him about deductive reasoning and all this sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and the Doctor varies between playing Holmes and playing Columbo. Yeah.
And there's also a bit of an in-joke about Tom Baker when Alfred is thinking the Doctor would make a good monk, but lacks the willingness to obey the rules. And I think Tom Baker himself was thinking of joining a monastery.
He joined, I believe, and he was in it for I think like 2 to 3 years, and then, or at least was in the process of training and had a crisis of faith.
So we join back up with Nyssa in the morning, and Matilda's castle is very serene, and it's just what Nyssa has been looking for, a place to forget her cares and lose herself in the tranquility of the gardens. And Nyssa's suggesting things like water features, which haven't been invented yet. And Matilda's like, oh, that's great. Yeah, we can redirect the stream through here and all sorts of things. And the only intrusion in all of this is Richard, who, is this knight that keeps pining after Nyssa. And he's also noticing like how Matilda's transformed the castle from what he knew it as several years ago before he went out on like a campaign as a fortress of war, and now it's turned into this garden of love, which is highlighting his inadequacies as a courtly suitor. And Matilda senses the reason for Richard's distress, and seeking to make her castle an ideal place of true love, she determines to help him win Nyssa's heart. And then, even if Nyssa's not in the mood to be wooed.
Matilda is a bit... at one point she says, gives him some coaching. It's like, you must plan to win her, Richard, as you would plan to take a castle. Besiege her with your devotion. Bombard her with your attention. Undermine her defences of your compliments. And offer her honourable terms of surrender.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. The morality of the 1270s. And the 1990s, question mark? Based on popular media.
Yes.
We also don't get a scene where Nyssa first meets the Lady Matilda. The scene was omitted, and we just get reference to Richard being grateful that he didn't have to introduce them. But, I feel like including that scene, and having that tension of like, can Nyssa win over Lady Matilda rather than, oh, it's fine.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So then the Chancellor arrives to speak with Richard, and Nyssa excuses herself when talk turns to the death of Godwin, because that's upsetting to her to hear that someone's been murdered. And, she kind of thinks like, oh, here we go again. The Doctor's about, and then people start dying.
Yes. She must have noticed this pattern.
Yeah. And as it happens, Godwin was one of 2 friars who secretly kept the Chancellor informed of the goings-on in the Brotherhood. And perhaps he was killed because his role had been discovered, or perhaps his fellow informant, a friar by the name of Oswald, killed him in one of their frequent quarrels. And in any case, the friars are bound to be keeping a closer watch on their own now, and the Chancellor will have trouble getting word from inside. And as Oswald is known to be an expert gardener, Matilda offers to summon him to the castle to advise on the upkeep of her gardens and to deliver secret messages to Richard.
Yeah. And of course, as well, a character called Oswald. It's just kind of like, was his mother Clara or something?
Maybe he's a male version of a Clara fragment.
Yes, yeah, maybe. Yeah, so Alfric accompanies the Doctor to his meeting with Bacon, where Thomas is keeping a watchful eye on them, as the Doctor and Bacon discuss the Friar's past researches. And Bacon still keeps notes on optics, and he also has a cache of magnetic lodestones in his cell. He's also invented the telescope, centuries before it's invented in our timeline. But despite this, he insists that he puts all these things behind him when he joined the Franciscan Order. and he's devoted his life to prayer, preaching, and the occasional lecture. And the Doctor, fascinated by all this, decides to attend Bacon's lecture at the Italian school later that day. And it's he and Alfred leave. Alfred, realising that he needs the Doctor's help, admits that Hubert has told him to look for evidence implicating Bacon in the murder. And Hubert suspects that Bacon has been conducting illicit research and wishes to deal with the matter internally before the rival brotherhood, such as the Dominicans, can use it to embarrass the Franciscans. So,
yeah. It's all sorts of courtly intrigue and...
Yeah, it's a bit Name of the Rose, isn't it?
Yeah. All sorts of machinations going on.
Yes.
And so the Doctor realizes that they're being trailed by Thomas, so he sends Alfric on ahead so he can speak to Thomas privately. And Thomas admits that Roger Bacon is indeed conducting scientific research and asks the Doctor for his help. And when the Doctor promises to give it, Thomas helps him in turn by suggesting that Alfric is the killer. He says that Godwin was overfond of the wine cellar, and Alfric may have disposed of him to save the Brotherhood embarrassment. And the Doctor finds this implausible, and he also wonders how Thomas knew that Godwin had been murdered when that hasn't been widely made public yet. So...
Yes.
The Doctor then rejoins Alfric, who has used the Doctor's methods to recreate the night of the murder and had found a staff marked with blood in the quiet shelter by the wall. And from this vantage point, you can see out and see the islands and kind of inlets of the Thames, including a small island which was owned by Roger Bacon before he joined the Order and gave up all his personal property. And on this island, he had an old observatory, which he had built, and it had been abandoned for years. And if Bacon is somehow still conducting heretical scientific research, then perhaps Godwin saw someone leaving the observatory and could have been murdered for it. So lots of speculation as to what may have happened.
Yeah. The Doctor attends Bacon's lecture, in which the old man absolutely revels in just offering up controversial kind of like theories, and the Doctor as well is just kind of like taking part in all this fun and games, and they basically incite a riot amongst the various students. And in those days, there were scholarly riots. There were quite a few of those in real history of Oxford. So Thomas, though, is kind of like concerned to note that Alfric isn't around. And so he slips away, fearing that Alfric has taken the chance to search Bacon's cell. But in fact, Alfric is down in the River Thames, and he's moved over to the observatory, where he finds new, freshly oiled bolts on the outside of the building, as if meant to keep someone inside. It says that it's the River Thames. Well, certainly nowadays it's not known as the Thames that far up. It's known as the River Isis. So I don't know if it was known as the Thames in those days. One thing I was like, yeah, okay. So Alfred's over in the observatory, and it's deserted, but he's found all of these books inside. It's this wonderful kind of collection of human knowledge, but it's all kind of like crumbling to dust. There's evidence that Bacon was still sort of like writing new theorems in 1266, so about like 10 years or so ago. And it was almost a decade after he joined the Order. So that suggests that Bacon joined the Order simply because their land was next to his observatory. There's also some other evidence that's suggesting that maybe he did give up his work long ago. However, there is one desk in the observatory that's clear of dust and grime, and it's covered with all of this kind of like distillation equipment, and also some papers that's mentioning an elixir of life. And so Alfred doesn't need any more evidence, because Bacon, he reckons, is meddling with alchemy, and the Franciscans are going to punish him themselves, locking him up for the rest of his life.
I mean, he could always not turn him in, but
Well,
it's interesting as he's kind of searching this room on the island, this observatory. Alfred's inner monologue was really interesting, kind of capturing the struggle of faith and superstition versus empirical evidence and science. And Alfred was trained as a stonemason, So he has kind of an engineering and math background before he joined the order, or at least, the 12th century equivalent of that.
Yeah.
So he's looking at all this through both those lenses, and like he comes across, I think, like plans for a submarine, much before his time. And earlier when you were talking about the lecture, that Bacon's given in the Italian university, there is a quote there that I really liked where Bacon says, "You take the ancient philosophers as your authorities," he accused the scholars. "You read and you dispute and you think you understand. But there can be no understanding without experience," he shouted. "Any proposition of natural philosophy that cannot be tested is worthless. Even if it is attested to by generations of wise men, even if it has the authority of Holy Writ, even if it is true, it is of no value to the philosopher if it has not been subjected to the test of empiricism." And I could definitely hear that coming straight from the doctor's mouth as well. Blasphemous at the same time, being brilliant.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So Alfric returns to the friary, unaware that he's being observed, and Brother Oswald is sitting by the river mourning Godwin's death. And it turns out that he and Godwin were lovers, and they joined the brotherhood so that their close proximity and lack of interest in women would not be considered suspicious. So I thought that was kind of cool, that there was some gay representation in this book in that sense, and at the time it very much would have had to have been that undercover thing, but you also run into the trope of killing off
Yes.
one of the gay partners, which is quite prevalent in a lot of genre fiction too. So
Yes.
So half points, maybe?
Yes.
So the Chancellor had found out Godwin and Oswald's secret, and that's why they had turned informants, because he was blackmailing them into becoming spies within the order. And then their relationship kind of went south after that, and Godwin started drinking, and that's why he was in the winery cellars all the time. And Oswald, fearing that Godwin would say something that he shouldn't while he's under the influence, maybe disclosing that they were lovers or something, was fighting with him on the night of his death. And now that he's heard Doctor and Alfric discussing their pursuit of the killer, and fearing that he'd be suspected of Godwin's murder based on their closeness and stuff, and if that secret were discovered, but he still has his duty and is under holy orders, and he still has his duty to the Chancellor. And when he sees Alfric returning from the observatory with the papers, he follows, hoping for news to report back on to the Chancellor. And at this same time, Thomas is on the roof of the monastery, or the friary, using Bacon's marvelous reflective lenses, his telescope, to observe the goings-on in the town. And when he sees Alfric present Hubert with the papers about the elixir of life, he says that this is disastrous, because not only has he now lost years of Bacon's valuable work, but Hubert will be able to use this as an excuse to lock up Bacon and prevent him from completing his research on the elixir of life. And Thomas vows that he has to recover the papers, whatever the cost.
I thought the idea of him using the telescope, I thought it was quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite a fun way of him snooping around at a distance.
And I think at this point, when they're talking a little bit more about Roger Bacon's research too, we do note that he does get some of the details, of like astronomy wrong, for example, where he claims rightly that the moon and other planets are reflecting the sun's light, but then he also says that the distant stars are also reflecting the sunlight. So he's not aware that they're distant stars on their own.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see like how close he is
Yes.
on some things, and he just doesn't quite get it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that night, Hubert fails to attend dinner after Vespers, which is the kind of like the evening of song.
And I have to point out, there was also another missing scene here. There's almost a riot instigated at the university, and we never get any conclusion as to what happened or how that was resolved.
Yeah, that's true.
Just, the doctor shows up at dinner.
Yeah.
No reference to the scholarly debate that he and Bacon just instigated.
Yeah.
They're just chummy pals. It's just like, again, it felt like there was a scene missing there.
Yeah. Or, for a book of such short length, you're just kind of like, how is this happening? I wonder whether he just couldn't get the scenes to work. And so he kind of skipped them. I was like, I didn't notice some of these missing scenes. It's only now just kind of like thinking back, going through and like talking to you. I was like, oh we don't actually see those. I didn't, but I was kind of like getting wrapped up in all of the talk of kind of like of Roger Bacon and just finding like the exploration of some of his theories quite interesting. So I wasn't noticing the narrative gaps. But yeah. So Hubert has failed to kind of be at dinner. So Alfred decides to kind of go and investigate this, and he discovers that Hubert's cell has been ransacked. Surprise, surprise. And also the papers have been stolen. And Hubert shows up the next day, but he's dead. And not is he dead, he's in the Jewish quarter. And big sigh here.
We could say his body was desecrated.
Yes. And there's also been a sign draped around his neck proclaiming death to the oppressors of the Jewish people. And Richard and his men quell the angry mob before a riot can erupt. And so the Doctor kind of points out that the note around Hubert's neck was written in Latin rather than Hebrew or English, and so therefore Hubert must have been killed by a friar, and that the body has been moved to the Jewish quarter to cast suspicion on them. But whilst the real culprit is at large, the Doctor is only too aware that the townspeople's hatred and their anti-Semitism will not diminish.
Yeah, so we finally get the Doctor speaking out about anti-Semitism after 60% of the book is done.
Yeah.
And even then it's a half-hearted you shouldn't scapegoat them. And with all the ritual body desecration stuff going on, it's we're squarely in the wilderness years, folks.
Yeah.
on this one. And you do get that kind of, this is my jurisdiction. No, it's my jurisdiction scene between the Chancellery Guard and the mayor's bailiff.
Yeah, it's an FBI matter. No, it's a police matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just... It's a Wilderness Years novel, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So after all of this and the attempted framing of the Jews in town, Richard returns to the castle, having just missed Brother Oswald's visit to help with gardening, and urged on by Matilda, Richard bids Nyssa good day, but once again he's stumbling over his words, and in vowing to protect her, he only distresses her with news that there's a killer on the loose. And cursing his clumsy speech, he tries to make things better by giving her his personal knife that's seen many battles that she can defend herself with when he's not there to protect her. And this distresses her further, and as Richard retreats, tongue-tied, the shaken, angry Nyssa leaves his knife in kind of the garden bower, refusing to even look at it. Chekhov's knife.
Yes. Yeah. Pay attention to that knife, folks. Yes. So the Doctor and Alfred, meanwhile, are questioning the friars to see who cannot account for where they were at the time of Hubert's murder. And most were attending Vespers at the time. However, the chief suspects, Oswald, Thomas, and Roger Bacon, were all absent. So that helps the narrative along. And when the Doctor and Alfred arrive at Bacon's cell to question him, they find Thomas is shouting at him. And Bacon seems to be... he doesn't seem to be too fussed about the loss of his papers, despite Thomas's fury that the hope of making an elixir has been lost. And when questioned, Thomas claims that Roger was ill yesterday and that Thomas had stayed with him. However, Roger, he looks quite well now. And there's another matter. The Doctor is inquiring after the donkey cart which Thomas used to transport Roger to Italian school the other day. And Thomas claims it was stolen whilst he was at the school. And the Doctor and Alfred then question Oswald, who seems very nervous, and also claims that he too had been ill during Vespers. So it's almost like, there's like some kind of plague going around. And Alfred returns to his chambers to ponder what he's learnt, only to discover that his chambers have been ransacked. So he tells the Doctor about what's happened and the loss of the papers as well. And the Doctor deduces that someone is trying to recover the papers. Someone who murdered Hubert when he was found searching his rooms. And Alfred seems to have escaped a similar fate, but the fact that his rooms were searched implies that the killer didn't find the papers in Hubert's room, which means that somebody else has them.
So the mystery deepens here.
Yes.
That same night, the nervous Oswald had built a barricade of furniture against his door in his kind of monastery cell to save himself from further questioning. And it saves his life when someone determined and strong tries to break in, searching for the papers. So Oswald spends a sleepless night holding the door closed against his attacker, and when dawn breaks, he heads for the castle to attend to Matilda and her gardens and unburden himself. And overnight, someone had torched a Jewish home in that district, indicating that the townsfolk were still blaming them for Hubert's murder. And at the same time, at the castle, Richard tries and fails once again to profess his love for Nyssa. She cares for him in a way, but he's too much of a warrior when all she wants from life is peace and solitude. So strike 3 there.
Yes.
So then Richard speaks with Oswald, who returns to the friary unburdened, passing the distracted Thomas on his way back. Meanwhile, Matilda goes into town to attend church, and Richard sends the garrison with her as an escort, saying that he'll join them later after attending the Chancellor with his news. And he really should leave at once, but from his vantage point in the castle, he can see Nyssa relaxing in the garden below. So he decides to not attend his duties and work on writing a love letter to her, which is challenging because he barely knows how to write.
Yes. Yeah, Richard. Oh, dear. I mean,
it takes White Knight syndrome to a new level.
Yes, it does. And I think we're supposed to find him endearing, but I just kind of, they just pack it in. But also as well, I do find it kind of frustrating that Nyssa on TV is a character to whom things happen. And she doesn't have a lot of agency in her TV stories. And here she is. She's been brought in off the subs bench. There's been all manner of kind of like, timey-wimey mechanisms for her to be in this novel. And she's spending a good chunk of it being wooed incompetently. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of out of commission. And it's like, why even include her in the story at all? I don't get that.
No, we may be well and truly tipping our hand here, folks.
I mean, there's one point where the Doctor literally walks by the castle, nodding at the walls and towers, thinking of Nyssa, and he says, "She's safe, and I don't think she's in the mood for adventures." And he keeps on walking. And it's like, and I know she's stowed away, but it's like, then why have her, in the first place? It's just so strange and just frustrating.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, back to the novel we go. Thomas has seen the Doctor and Alfred heading for the observatory, but has taken steps to deal with them. Because the Doctor is kind of awed by all the scholarship that's there in the observatory.
Yeah, there's a line where he says, submarines, aircraft, spectacles, telescopes, microscopes, metallurgy, magnetic fields, the motion of the planets in the solar system, the theory of gravity. Apart from a knowledge of electricity, this room contains everything you'd need to start an industrial revolution. It's Copernicus, Galileo, Leonardo, and Newton, all within these 4 walls.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine Roger Bacon invented all of that stuff. I think there's some artistic license there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he certainly, was the first steps in those directions.
Yes. So the Doctor knows that he's got a responsibility to history. However, can he just bear to leave these papers to kind of like to rot? I mean, it's Genesis of Daleks. It's, do I have to write?
Yeah, just before he launches into that speech, he's interrupted.
Yes.
By the observatory being set on fire.
Yes.
The decision is literally kind of taken out of his hands, so he doesn't even have to decide.
Yeah. However, I was like, this is Genesis of Daleks.
Yeah.
So the Doctor's able to use one of Bacon's magnetic lodestones to draw back the bolts from the door, because they've been bolted in. And so he and Alfred escape. And Alfred now understands how Godwin was found in a room that had been apparently bolted from the inside. It was people doing things with magnets. But only Roger Bacon has a collection of lodestones. But he's too old and frail to kind of lift them up to where the deadbolts are on the door. So they kind of get through Oxford, and they've also their clothes are somewhat burnt, so their faces are like covered with soot as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they had to take a dip in the river to stop their clothes from smoldering too, so they probably don't smell very good.
No. And the Doctor and Alfric confront Bacon with evidence of his heresy. He admits that he joined the Brotherhood only for food and shelter, after spending his entire fortune on his researches. However, over the years, he's come to appreciate the life of poverty prayer. But Thomas is the one who's forced him to resume his researches into the elixir of life. And he's been beating him and scourging him whenever he tried to resist.
Like with a flail instrument, sort of.
Yeah. So Thomas is not a nice man.
For some reason, in looking at the cover of this book, I had thought that there would be like zombies, because there's all this mention of the plague and sickness and pestilence, and thinking like, oh, it's whether it's these shape-shifting aliens, from another dimension or whatever, going to inhabit these people. None of that happens. This is a straightforward murder mystery, and I keep thinking to myself like, okay, is a monster going to show up? No.
Is it going to be the Rutan?
So there's no sign of Thomas in the friary, although Oswald had claimed, to have seen him when he was leaving the castle earlier. But before searching for him, the Doctor and Alfric report to the Chancellor that they've found the killer. Godwin must have seen Thomas leaving the observatory. Only Thomas could have used the lodestones to bolt Godwin in the wine cellar, and he would have known that the papers had been taken, and he knew that Godwin was murdered before anyone had said so in public when he slipped up, there. And he lost a donkey cart capable of transporting a body on the day that Hubert's body was transported to the Jewish quarter and mutilated. So the Chancellor admits that Godwin and Oswald were his spies, and that Oswald's visits to Matilda's castle were, kind of pretextual for passing on information to Richard. And so the Doctor's appalled by the implication here that Oswald must have taken the papers, and Thomas, who's already killed in pursuit of these papers, saw Oswald leaving the castle empty-handed. And, since Thomas is not in the friary and Nyssa's basically alone in the castle, there's a problem because Thomas is going to be, headed to the castle to search for these papers.
Yeah.
So Nyssa's in danger.
Yes. Oh, yes. So Richard. So you remember our dear knight Richard. So he's busy working away at his love letter, and this has taken quite some time because he's not good with words, as we've known. And he's so focused on this, he doesn't notice when a friar enters the room behind him, and so therefore he's completely unprepared when Thomas stabs him and takes back the papers. And hearing Nyssa approaching, Thomas cuts Richard's throat so he's going to be unable to speak, and hides as Nyssa enters the room to find Richard dying.
And she's kind of cradling him in her arms as he's gurgling. And, so she's going through some more shocking, traumatic PTSD type stuff.
Yes, because this isn't kind of like, corn syrup type stuff. It's quite graphic. So when Richard finally does die, Nyssa leaves the room and Thomas emerges from hiding. But he realises that Richard has written the name of his killer in his blood on the floor.
Probably with some spelling mistakes. But...
Yes. And Nyssa retreats to the garden because she's unable to deal with a violent death. She doesn't try and find Matilda or someone. She just kind of goes to the garden just to process this. I don't know. And Thomas is pursuing her because he wants to silence her. She now knows that there will never be sanctuary for her anywhere. And here she's decided that Thomas is probably going to kill her, and she's at peace with that.
She's just like, fine, it's got to happen eventually, so why not here and now?
Yeah, I mean, she starts unbuttoning her top so there's less resistance to the knife.
Yeah.
I mean, what? What? So the voices in Thomas's head, the ones which are telling him what to do, think that it's best that Nyssa's body will be found alongside Richard, so it looks like some kind of like lover's pact or something. And so he's trying to drag Nyssa from the garden, and she then at this point makes her choice, and she knows that that knife that Richard had left for her, that Chekhov's knife, is still kind of like hidden in the Bowery, and she grabs it and stabs Thomas in the head. I mean, much to the surprise, I think, of both of them.
And to me as a reader, I was like, oh.
Yes. Yes. And then the Doctor and Alfred arrive to find that Nyssa has chosen to live. Oh, this is awful, isn't it? I just, dearie dear. Yeah, I mean, Nyssa, as we've said, Nyssa can be a passive character on TV, but really?
Yeah, it just seemed very out of character, even for her, and it just very puzzling.
Yes, yes. Yes. It's.
But she doesn't actually kill Thomas.
No.
So Thomas later wakes up in the infirmary, which I can only imagine what that looks like in the 1200s. The voices in his mind are silent because they've been pinned to the shard of metal remaining in his head, in his skull from the knife blade. So it's like the metal blade like honed in and focused all the alien kind of voices in his head from the prologue, and so he's aware of them, but he's no longer influenced by them.
Yeah, but how come they haven't done that whenever there's been any other metal that's been anywhere around? I don't get what's going on. What?
And so Brother Thomas confesses to everything, that he murdered both Godwin and Hubert, that he tried to kill the Doctor and Alfric, and he torched the Jewish house to make it appear that they were still blamed for Hubert's death. And so he insists that he was possessed by a demon, which drove him to these acts, but he will be tried before the king's...
Assizes. So it's kind of like a travelling court.
And his punishment will be dealt out by the Franciscans. So there's going to be scandal, but not as much as there could have been. And the book says, although the problems of the Jews are far from over... the stigma of this murder has been lifted for them. So
yeah.
And the Doctor and Alfric attend to Bacon, who burns his notes on the elixir, and he says that it was an impossible dream that he was driven to pursue by Thomas in order to humor him and to kind of stop the beatings from Thomas. And Bacon's notes on submersive craft and the movements of the planets, so the stuff that's actually based in fact, were all burned in the observatory. But now that his notes on the elixir are destroyed as well, he'll be able to go down in history as both a teacher and a philosopher, which is kind of how it was intended, but at least he won't be known as mad heretical alchemist, but he also won't be known as like the architect of a new scientific revolution either.
Yeah. I've just checked, by the way. I think I got my kings wrong. I think I said Edward II. It's Edward I. But yeah. I mean, Edward I does go on to do some other pretty horrific stuff. Oh dear. Anyway, right, back to this. So the Doctor returns to the castle to collect Nyssa, but is forced to tell her that her kind of like thesis that she was researching back when she was at her own university isn't correct. So Bacon believes that the universe is governed by the self-generation of likenesses, and he analyses the physical world only in the belief that understanding will kind of protect the people of the world against the coming of the Antichrist. So he's not like a real scientist, and as we would know it, like the science in his text is almost incidental. This says that to Doctor she's decided to return home to a university, although she's well aware of the looming threat of war back on her unnamed planet, and
to be named by RTD in the future.
Yes, indeed. And hopefully in better stories than this. Yes, but it wasn't instinct but reason that kind of like led her to defend herself against a killer. She thinks, again, like she now knows that the sanctuary that she was seeking is just an illusion, and that kind of like life is a process of change and turmoil, and true peace comes only with death. But she's not ready for that, she knows that she's responsible for Richard's death, but she won't allow that responsibility to crush her spirit. And so satisfied of this, the Doctor takes her home, knowing that he too must take responsibility for his actions. But there's also a line in which he says that I always make sure that none of my companions die. It's like clunk.
Yeah. About that.
Yes. Yeah.
And we don't actually even get their goodbye scene either, and kind of like another missing scene. It's all heavily implied that the Doctor's able to take her back, and hopefully maybe he's using the fast return switch.
Yeah, maybe.
to drop her off, because he's not the best at navigating.
No.
In this era, so.
No, and I don't think really she can survive many more adventures. But, yeah.
And then the book ends with a little epilogue following up with Thomas, where we jump back to 1346,
yes.
And kind of the fading memory of that alien invasion and those voices. And, he tries to warn his earlier self of the futility of that, before he gets sent back in time by the aliens using up the last of their energy. So it turns out it's kind of like a causal loop where he's the mad priest who's warning himself, and events will just play out as they did before. So that's how it ends.
Yeah. I must say, when we got to the epilogue, I'd forgotten about the prologue. I was going, what's this? What's going on?
And what else is interesting is the Doctor never actually learns about the alien threat directly. He suspects that there's more at work here, but he doesn't actually thwart it. He restores the timeline to its proper time, but he's very much, he doesn't know what species this is or how they're involved or anything like that.
Yeah. Right. Well, what did you make of this?
Well, let's go ahead and skip over the 60-page essay on historical relatives.
Yeah, the 60-page essay, which is also quite there's some bits where you just go, really? We just wrote that? Yeah. Oh, dearie dear.
Oh.
Yeah.
So one of the things that comes to mind about this is, does it have anything interesting or new to say about science versus superstition? And I don't think it really does. Maybe a little bit about the concept of, advancing when humanity's ready for it. The Doctor seems to imply, had the Industrial Revolution happened earlier, it wouldn't have worked out very well. So there's a hint of morality needs to catch up with that, but that's a lot of legwork and heavy lifting on the part of the reader to come to those conclusions.
Yeah.
It just felt really messy, and like I mentioned, just a lot of missing scenes that should have been in the book.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that the book does do is it does kind of evoke a sense of Oxford, of the town. It doesn't feel like a whole series of kind of studio sets and TV centre. I mean, it does feel like a real place. And from my understanding of Oxford geography, I think it's pretty accurate. So, yeah, I mean, you can see that a lot of research has gone into this. Possibly too much. But yeah, it's very well researched. It's more interesting when the book is featuring Roger Bacon and his works. But I mean, I guessed who the killer was from fairly early on. I must say, I did wonder whether it might possibly be Alfric.
Yeah, I kind of thought the twist was going to be that the rest of the shape-shifting aliens would have come back and taken over the entire friary or something.
Yeah.
Where I was waiting for the scene at dinner where all the monks stand up together and start attacking or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It was just the one person. And
yeah. It is Black Orchid. But
yeah, I really enjoyed the slice of life elements of just visiting the time period.
Yeah,
right before their pandemic.
Yes. Yeah.
And I felt like I learned a little something about Oxford and its geography and its history. Kind of the same feeling I would get, after watching or listening to a historical episode from the First or Second Doctor era.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Fourth Doctor does a almost pure historical.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it was like listening to a good history podcast, but a modern day history podcast, but also as well kind of would show some of the unpleasant sides and kind of and hopefully not make you kind of think, do we realise this is unpleasant? Oh, dearie dear. Oh, it was very frustrating, this book, at times. And, it's...
And the lack of agency with Nyssa.
Oh.
I mean, just, her hold up in the castle.
Yeah. It's like, what's the point? Why have we done all the heavy lifting to get her into here and just stick her away? I mean, okay, sure, she's an aristocratic character, but you could have done the same thing with Romana. But also, Romana wouldn't have wanted to be stuck away in a castle, either of them. So, it's just...
Yeah, it seems a really weird way to shoehorn her into the story and then just not make use of her at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think he felt he needed to have a character in peril that we kind of cared about. So I was like, okay. But, I don't know. I'm glad it wasn't Sarah Jane that was being treated in such a way. But, Oh.
Well, she wouldn't have put up with it. I don't even think Nyssa in the show would have put up with it either.
No, I don't think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, okay, sure, this is Nyssa after like a lot of life experiences and everything, and I haven't heard, because I know that Nyssa in her timeline reappears in Big Finish Doctor Who. And I haven't heard any of those, so I don't know if there's any
reference to the story.
Yes, yeah. I did watch The Keeper of Traken just to sort of see, like, when they're introduced, does the Doctor go, "Oh, hello," because I did see someone that said in a review, "Oh, it explains the strange way in which the Fourth Doctor sort of like treats Nyssa." And it's like, well, he barely looks at her when they meet for the first time to keep a track, and they're like round like a dining room table, and he's just like, "Oh, hello," and he just wanders off. It's not like a "ooh" or anything. There's nothing there that makes you think, "Oh, they must have met before," or he must have met her before.
Apparently, in the novel Empire of Death, which is a past Doctor adventure, I think that came out after this one.
Yeah.
There is reference to Nyssa suspecting that and it was the Fifth Doctor at the time, but that he had some sort of foreknowledge of her adventures,
right?
Possibly hinting back to this, but otherwise I don't think it's ever picked up on it.
Yeah.
Another issue for me was mixing up all the names of the characters, like who's Oswald, who's Godwin, who's Thomas.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a difficult time keeping all that straight.
But I mean, one thing that, like, the essay, I think the essay makes this point, unless I'm getting confused with an actual history podcast I was listening to, is that the names would be kind of like fairly kind of like Anglo-Saxon, whereas for like the friars and stuff, whereas the people that were kind of like higher up the scale would have French names, going back to what I was saying earlier about kind of like after the Norman invasion. And I think the essay also mentions that does it talk about beef? I think it does, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. That beef, the actual food that people eat, is a French word for bœuf, whereas cow in English is kind of like from the Anglo-Saxon, and because it was the Anglo-Saxons that were kind of like looking after it, also it was the Normans, the French speakers, that were enjoying the fruits of the labour of looking after the animals. And I thought, oh, that's interesting.
How accurate or true it is, because I think that happens with almost all sorts of meats where you don't say like, "Oh, I'm eating pig today,"
or chicken.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like you try the words change a little bit to kind of remove yourself from the animal it once was.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, also pork is French, whereas pig is not. But yeah.
So how would you score this adventure?
5. Yeah, 5. I mean, there are some bits of it I would give it more, just from the sense of the... Actually, no, 4. I've decided 4. But because it was, this book kept on losing points. But it's just, oh, dearie dear. Yeah. I wish Kate Orman had written this book. Because I think if Kate Orman had written this book, then it would have been, I think, a lot better.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I just being more nuanced and things, and I think as well, if you are going to be exploring pretty heavy themes, you need to be doing it with kind of like a deft hand, and you just need to, oh gosh,
yeah. I don't think this would get published today.
No,
no,
I don't think so at all. How about you?
For me, it felt like half or maybe 2/3 of a story, just really incomplete and unsatisfying. So it's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like some of the slice of life bits, with the field trip immersion and into the culture. But it's just too many problematic things with it in the narrative, and too many missing scenes, and kind of a muddy and clouded message. Yeah. So and just a real waste of Nyssa as a character. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it does kind of feel like the Doctor that we see with Leela in the kind of the Robert Holmes period, I think.
It almost also feels like a Dr. Light.
Yeah,
because he's hardly in the book.
Yeah.
He shows up a few times to make observations and deductions, and then it's back to the monks and the friars. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I mean, Alfric was interesting. I think I would happily read more stuff of Alfric, but right. Anyway.
Yes, some of the secondary characters were developed.
Yeah.
Well, Richard was very frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, Richard. I just wanted to kind of like grab Richard by the shoulders and shake him. That's oh grief. Anyway, it's just...
Oh, well, we can leave this one in the past.
Yes, literally. We can move on.
All right. So, how about some listener feedback?
Yes, let's please. Listen.
So we don't have any email this month. Just a reminder, folks, you can email us at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to read your letter out on the air, especially if you may have been a listener who suggested this book for us to read. We'd love to get your thoughts.
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of good reviews of this, so it is our opinion, but yeah. Oh, dude. Oh, gosh.
How about on Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook. Right. So as I say, digging myself out of a hole. Our usual kind of like our usual likes and everything. But yeah, I think it's Twitter where the action normally is, isn't it?
Normally, yeah. Yes. We have a couple of comments. Keith Say, 50DW50 on Twitter, let us know that he very much enjoyed the Missy podcast, and included a Michelle Gomez giving us the old wink image with it. And we also heard from our reader, or should I say our performer last month, Alia Itori, who said that it was a great Wii podcast and thanked us for having her on board as Missy.
Cool.
And she says it would be a dream to work for Big Finish someday, and it was great to hear more about the Missy Chronicles book, and that she may need to buy a copy.
Cool.
You can certainly recommend that book.
Yes. Yeah. It's very good. Also, as well, you discovered something interesting when you were looking into where our podcasts have been appearing in the charts.
Oh, that's right. We randomly saw that our podcast is charting in Senegal. So hello to all of our listeners there. And unfortunately, I can't speak any French.
Bonjour.
Moi, je m'appelle Matt.
Yes, bienvenue. It's in the top 100 of all podcasts of all languages in Senegal.
Yeah, so it was like, we're beating out The Daily Show with Trevor Noah there.
Yes, wow. Yes. Yeah, so if somehow you're responsible for that too, please let us know.
And we are available for conventions.
Yes. Yeah, I've not been to Senegal. I'd be quite intrigued. I could just about get by in French. So, yeah, cool. All right. Okay, I think this is where we find out what we're going to be reading for next month.
It is, and it was a surprise to me as well. Because originally I was thinking, let's just stick with Nyssa and read Empire of Death, which would have by David Bishop, and then I realized, the previous version of the show had already done that book.
Ah, okay.
So I was like, okay, well, I still want to do a Fifth Doctor pick.
Right, guess out of the way.
Yeah, why not? And hey, let's stick with the past Doctor Adventure range as well.
Okay.
So I randomly picked for December Deep Blue by Mark Morris.
Ooh, okay.
Which features Tegan, Turlo, and a few surprises.
Mm.
So I was thinking blue, winter, cold, and that's as far as I got. And who knows, it'll probably be set at a warm tropical location. And feature the plague, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. I remember with Blue Box, we kind of like figured that would be TARDIS-centric, and the TARDIS doesn't even appear in it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Deep Blue could be isn't that an intelligence?
It's the IBM. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
So maybe it relates to that. We'll see.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And I literally picked it like during the recording. So
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool.
fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
Cool. Okay. It doesn't have a high bar to clear. so
Onwards and upwards.
yeah. So let's hope our last pick of 2021 is slightly better than our November pick. I'm sorry, folks. Yeah, I know. I really did hate this book. I did.
Oh. Well, until next month, this has been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris recovering in South London. Happy reading and stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song Doctor Who Theme Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. Help other listeners to find us by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
That was great.
I've definitely enjoyed that talk far more than I did reading that book.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, oh, grief. How do people recommend that to us? What?
Well, I could see, recommending a bad book to see our reaction too. So
Yes, I guess.
maybe question mark.
Maybe.
Hopefully.
Maybe. This book that we've just read, it's got to be the first time that the Doctor in any medium says the word penis.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I was intrigued to see how it all fitted together.
Well, we still haven't gotten either the scene where she joins the TARDIS again or leaves the TARDIS again, so we may never know.
Maybe she's just lurking there in the back. Maybe she's the shepherdess that Tom Baker was sometimes talking about, of like there being like a shepherdess somewhere in the TARDIS looking after a whole host of sheep. Maybe it's Nyssa.
Nyssa out of order.
Yes, yes.
I'm slightly panicking because
Right.
I just realized the book pick that I wanted to pick has been done by the previous show.
Oh no!
So I'm like, and I didn't have a backup planned, so I'm...
Do you want to have some quick thinking time?
Yeah, let me just pull up a list of the doctors that I was thinking of.
Sure.
And then see if anything else... Ooh, that one sounds kind of fun.
I know that we only like to do an author a maximum of 3 times, but I mean, under the circumstances, I'm quite happy if...
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have a solution.
All right, well, I have a book. I have no idea how this one will go, but...
That's okay.
double checking that this one has not also been...
Fair enough, yeah.
Good, and... Okay, so we'll see how this one goes.
Okay. See whether it has any references to the plague or anything.